So welcome to the Scandinavian Herland report.
Thank you.
Milo Yiannopoulos.
Oh yeah, well, nice pronunciation.
You are one of the leading intellectuals of our time with provoking technique of fearless speech. You are also a famous author and you are an internet guru and one of the strongest defenders of free speech and Christianity and the right for us to disagree with the totalitarian, authoritarian, I would say, mainstream elites we currently have in the West. Dr. Paul Craig Roberts wrote a column, and it was just so lovely. He said, when I grew up, America used to be a nation. Today, there's only hatred. What's gone wrong in America? White hates black. Women hate men, the war in the family, the war in the workplace, and with a mainstream media such as outlets such as CNN that use all their time hating their own president. How will this society survive?
Well, they don't just hate their own president, they hate their own people too. And CNN is the worst example of inward-looking elites who don't understand the country they're reporting on and don't serve the interests of Americans. What's happened to America is, in a way, it's a victim of the First Amendment, of the right to, do, say, and be anything, because the left, the aggressive activist left, has used the First Amendment to advocate for tyranny, which is never what the founders intended. They have used their right to free speech through the campus radicals of the 60s and 70s, through political correctness of the 90s, and now social justice, the third wave feminism and Black Lives Matter of the 2010s. And inevitably the 2020s. They've used their right to aggressively express themselves, to advocate not for freedom, not for particular political values, but instead for censorship in favor of politically correct elites, as you say. So you have, the founders never intended for the First Amendment to be used to advocate for tyranny, but you have the left saying, in the most extraordinarily brazen and abusive ways when they come up with these phrases like masculinity is so fragile and kill all white men, using their First Amendment rights to advocate for the silencing of groups that have fallen out of favor. And this is something that could never have been foreseen by the people who put America together, but the state of the country as it now stands is that the First Amendment, supposedly the inalienable right of anyone here to be able to say, do, and be whatever they want, is under threat like never before. And people look to America for guidance on all kinds of matters, political, cultural, military, and otherwise. And the state of play in America is of a country split in two, down ideological lines, but mostly down identity politics lines. And this is a construction and invention of the progressive left to divide us all according to gender and race and all the rest of it. Now there are sort of two countries operating essentially independently.
Because it's very strange, because when you look at the older USA, we're from Europe, both you and I.
Yes.
And in the olden days, we used to look up to the United States because they had thought about national identity. Regardless of whichever country you originated from, you were welcome here because it was like the melting pot. But we've seen the past 10 to 15 years changed to focus on ethnic origin.
Yes, well, America, it was founded on ideas, not on skin color. And most people think of America, they think of American values. It's the free, capitalism, property rights, democracy, freedom of speech, freedom to be, do, and say whatever you want. This has changed in the last 10, 15, 20 years as the progressive left has attempted to inject gender politics and racial politics into expressions of national pride. So you have in high school, displaying the flag is being called racist by school teachers, or is it this sort of they're implying that pride in national values is somehow racially suspect. Now in Europe, given Europe's bloody history and some of the racial and religious wars that have happened in Europe, in Asia, the Middle East, whatever, there may be some justification for regarding excessive patriotism with some skepticism, because countries have typically been defined geographically and ethnically elsewhere in the world. But America was never like that. It wasn't like it until the left made it that way. and give us your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free. This is written on the base of the Statue of Liberty. This was written at a time when the country was about values and ideas, and everybody was welcome to come here provided they signed up to those ideas. But now you have an elite establishment in America that doesn't believe in those things. The people on CNN, many of the people in the so-called deep state in the government, most of the academy, most university professors, most journalists, most people working in the entertainment industry in Hollywood and music do not believe in the values on which America was founded. And now we're in a situation where America is no better than anywhere else in terms of these sort of toxic and unpleasant wars between races, genders, and sexualities and so on. We used to look up to America because America was the highest and most perfect expression of the values that countries like the UK spread across the world: democracy, liberty, property rights, capitalism. We used to look up to America because America took all of that and ran with it, and it was the most free of all of us. It was the most capitalistic of all of us. It was the most individualistic of all of us. But it isn't anymore. And this presents a crisis for the rest of the world, because if we don't have America as a cultural superpower, showing us, demonstrating why freedom and democracy are the best system and result in the most human happiness, if we don't have America's role model out there demonstrating to the Middle East, demonstrating to China, demonstrating to Russia, demonstrating to Africa, that freedom and democracy and tolerance and pluralism, all the rest of it, are the best way to construct a society so people are happy, we're left in a very dangerous position, because not only do we not have any good role models, but nobody is actively advocating for the only system of values that we know for sure makes people happy, which is freedom and capitalism.
It's quite an extraordinary development in the West, which you're pointing to, and I would like to remind everybody of the renowned linguist Noam Chomsky, who's spoken repeatedly of the U.S. no longer being a democracy due to it's an oligarchy where a very few ultra-rich elite, who own the media, by the way, control the system. Look at, for example, the American media. Over 90% of the American media is owned by 6 corporations. And to add, half of those corporations also own the weapon industry in this country. So no wonder they need wars everywhere all the time. And it's very easy to manufacture consent, which Chomsky also speaks about, when you control the media. When you look back in the 1993, I believe, there were like 60 different groups, controlling the American media. So there's been a synchronization towards a very, very small elite. This is the problem with globalization as well, because we all had the dream. Look, the more globalized, Indians are going to get, access to the capitalist structure and all of that. But globalism has led to the 1% or the less, there's 1% rising up. So we're turning into an authoritarian system.
Yes. I don't think this is a problem intrinsic to capitalism. I don't think that pure capitalism has been tried recently. This is a problem with a certain kind of Western late-stage capitalism that exists in intricate symbiosis with government. The revolving door between, political lobbyists and big business. Google lobbyists becoming government employees and then going back to the private sector again. It is that interweaving, the interlacing of government. And that's what lefties were talking about 20 years ago and talking about the military-industrial complex. It was weapons manufacturers and all the rest of it being in bed with the Republican Party. Well, they were sort of right about that. But here's the interesting thing. These days, corporate America is on the left. If you look at, CBS, for instance, that owns Simon & Schuster and, all kinds of other different media properties. Corporate America now is moving in the direction of identity politics, the direction of, the diversity, equality, kind of this parasitic parallel industry that just has suckered itself onto all of the industries in American public life. Corporate America now is far more likely to celebrate gay pride and, weird expressions of gender feminism and obsess over transgender pronouns than it is to talk about, Columbus Day or whatever in it, or to express any kind of patriotism or national pride. Just look at the NFL, even the NFL, this massive, by definition, patriotic institution, the National Football League, which wanted desperately for its own players to be able to disrespect the American anthem and flag and all the rest of it, because the people who own the NFL agreed with them. This was never the case until very recently. And it was only Trump. Trump rightly intuited that most NFL fans would be horrified by, watching a group of spoilt brat millionaires disrespecting the country that made them rich and successful. on the basis of spurious political objections. Trump successfully intuited that this was not going to go down well with fans. But what that demonstrated is that, the public and Trump are on one side of the debate, and, and me and other people like us. On the other side, you don't just have the government anymore. You have big business, the academy, and the entertainment industry, all of the huge institutions of civil society, of soft power, all lined up on the pro-war, globalist side of the fence. And this is what Trump correctly identified in the last election.
And I think that's the most important message. And on that note, Sir, Mr. Milo Yiannopoulos,
This has been delightful.
I would like to thank you for joining us here, and ευχαριστώ πολύ for you to come here. And God bless you.
God bless you. Thank you so much for having me.